Well, it seems like Christmas has reared its ugly head again, and only 1 year since last time. That sounded a lot better in my head. Like everybody else, it's time to make use of the Christmas season to have some special episode or whatever. After spending nearly half a year wondering what I'd even do for this one, I eventually reached an answer, which is making little animals blast off again. Nothing quite says Christmas spirit like a dose of fireworks going off in your face after all. So here's the plan. I'm going to replay Pokemon Crystal for the 7600,000th time again, but with a twist. This is Delibird, the delivery Pokemon. It was introduced in Generation 2, and being a penguin, or at least some deformed penguin abomination, it can be found in the Ice Cave. If Christmas was a Pokemon, it would be Delibird. This jolly old Saint Penguin carries a large bag that is supposedly filled with presents and brings joy and happiness to children all over the world. Although I kind of question the parenting skills of anyone who lets their kids play with it. And it has also joined legends such as Viridian and Dunsparce in their distinctive ability to be completely friggin' useless. Its stats are awful, with only speed being passable. Its typing of ice and flying makes it weak to common offensive types such as fire and electric. And it's murderized especially hard by rock, so thank god that sneaky pebbles were only introduced in Generation 4. It also only naturally learned a single move until Sun and Moon, when our Lord and Savior Junichi Masuda decided to have some mercy on it and let the poor bird learn Drill Peck. This useless sack of meat will be my companion in my adventure through Johto. How original. But first things first. This is a solo challenge, which means that only Delibird is allowed to fight. Unfortunately, to progress in the game, I need to use HM moves to clear certain obstacles, so I'll bring along extra Pokemon that will serve as HM slaves and nothing else. I am also forbidden from doing any excessive grinding. It may be a weak little pansy, but if I spend an entire day grinding, even Delibird will tear through practically everything by sheer level advantage. But where's the fun in that? No pain, no gain. I also won't use regular items in battle unless absolutely necessary. I'm hoping this won't happen, but the final battle against Red might just go south rather quickly. Who knows? Guess you just have to wait and see. Finally, we are doing this with Christmas spirit in mind, so present stays. Forever. This pile of randomly generated dicks will be part of Delibird's moveset from the moment the journey begins up to the very end. I'm basically shooting myself in the foot by doing this, but again, where's the fun in that? In not doing this, I mean. Now, as long as you have a functioning brain and your profession isn't game journalist, Crystal isn't exactly hard if you play it like normal. But normal isn't part of my dictionary anyway, so let's take a quick look at the problems that Delibird will face. For starters, being the only usable Pokemon obviously means that it will be the target of every single opponent, making Delibird's weaknesses that much more of a problem. I'm sure that anyone who has played the Johto games knows the ramifications of a 4x weakness to rock. Move pools are extremely limited compared to Generation 4 and later, and Delibird is an especially bad case. Its only level up move, Present, either deals a variable amount of damage or heals the target, usually when you least want it, of course. Since I have no access to egg moves, Delibird will be relying entirely on HMs and TMs. This means that move variety is pretty much non-existent early on. Not that it gets much better later on. One of these moves is Fly, which is the only flying type move that Delibird can learn. It's an HM and thus can only be removed by going to the move deleter, so it will be there until the end, together with Present. The rest of Delibird's moves are quite lackluster to say the least. Blizzard is powerful, but only has 5 PP and an accuracy of 70%, which means it will never hit when you need it to, because the RNG gods are absolute dickheads. There's a move tutor that can teach it Ice Beam, but it's only available once you beat Red, so really, what's the point? For the last 2 slots, it's going to be Return and Icy Wind all day every day. But enough of that, let's get started with this thing. Thanks to my unparalleled ROM hacking skills, we can pick either Delibird, Delibird or Delibird as our starter, but I think the choice is obvious. Don't believe Professor Elm, he's already growing senile. We'll be spending the rest of our in-game lives with this penguin, so I think we should give him a proper Christmassy nickname. And wow, look at that, it's female! That's actually going to be useful later on. Well, one time. And never again. Right off the bat, we can see that Present is going to present us with some annoyances. The starting trips between Newbark Town and Mr. Pokemon's house were predictably simple, with only Poison Sting and Present's low PP posing any kind of obstacle. As for the rifle's name, well, I think Asshole would be too predictable, so let's go with something equally mature. Thus far, Delibird only has access to Present, so it's just a matter of hoping for the best. In fact, until Violet City, it's just spamming Present and hoping the jolly old bird doesn't fall over first, so let's just skip that. Here in Violet City, we have 2 options. We can either go blow up the Sprout Tower, or we can go blow up the gym. The Sprout Tower gives us some decent experience points, so let's start with that. These Bellsprouts make it easy to earn a couple of levels if you're racing something like a Pidgey or a Zubat or god forbid a Delibird. The Sprout Tower doesn't pose a bigger threat than everything so far. Our options are limited to Present anyway, so it's basically a matter of the RNG gods not being dicks. And that kind of applies to several parts of this challenge. Only after I actually started it did I realize that repeating myself over and over with Present and the RNG gods doesn't really make for compelling entertainment. Maybe Present's low PP is a present in disguise, because it turns out that Struggle is kind of not 100% useless in Generation 2, only 99%. If you're not familiar with it, basically, when a Pokemon runs out of PP for all its regular moves, the only move it can use is Struggle, which has a base power of 50 but deals recoil damage. In Generation 1, the recoil is equal to half the damage inflicted, while in Generation 4 and later it's half of the user's maximum HP, effectively making it suicide. In Generation 2 and 3, however, it's equal to a quarter of the damage inflicted, making it actually kinda sort of an option in a few very specific cases. This will be the only one. As a reward for bombing the Sprout Tower, we get the worst piece of garbage HM in existence, oh joy. After this comes the gym, which turns out to be that whole repetition thing again. Beating Faulkner's parrots gives us access to Mud Slap. It's extremely weak, but I'll take all the move variety I can get, especially if it means I get some degree of consistency instead of a 20% chance of healing the opponent. It has the side effect of lowering accuracy too, so I guess it could be useful if I'm feeling lucky, punk. The road to the Union Cave was pretty straightforward, blah 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 present, blah blah blah, let's just skip that. In the cave itself, we face the PP shortage once more. Mudslap only gets 10 PP and Present is normal type, so dealing with rock types requires some care. The real point of this is that you find the Swift TM in here. It's not terribly powerful, but it's a huge improvement over Mudslap and it doesn't ruin your day every 5 minutes like Present. I also catch a Sandshrew for HM slavery. Sure enough, eventually we leave the cave. So nice to see you, Mr. Hiker. Oh, you piece of shit! There really isn't much to do in Azalea Town right now, so let's dive straight into the plot. Watch your back. The Rocketeers in the Slowpoke Well are no match for mighty Centaballs, mostly because of its level advantage. After that, we head for the next battle with Assball and absolutely embarrass him. Go home, you tryhard. The gym is not much different. Things could have gone worse if Centaballs got inflicted with poison, but that didn't happen. Don't worry though, things will escalate in a bit when we get to Goldenrod. Ilex Forest was kind of boring, but we finally got our 200 Pokéboxes worth by saving a useless parrot, getting another awful HM, and teaching it to our slave. This cool guy over here also hands out the Headbutt TM, which is slightly more powerful than Swift and will be Delibird's 4th move for a short bit. After a few minutes, we finally get our sorry asses into Goldenrod. We have a variety of options here, but ultimately it will all be preparation to take on the gym leader. The most obvious thing to do is to head to the underground and the areas to the north of the city to get some of that tasty experience. On the right day, you can find this lady over at the department store and she gives you the return TM if the first Pokemon in your party has a high enough happiness. Return is a really cool move because not only can almost every Pokemon learn it, it also goes all the way up to 102 base power at maximum happiness. Our fighting force consists of a single Delibird, so this will be reached rather quickly and Return will become our bread and butter. We also have access to Blizzard through the game corner, but it's really hard to recommend. We probably can't even get enough money for it at this point anyway. With our penguin at level 32, it's time to challenge the gym and oh god. Goldenrod's gym leader is rather infamous because of her Miltank, one fat pain in the ass. One reason is that Miltank is bulky, can take a decent amount of damage while dishing out its own, and has a recovery move. Another reason is Attract, which makes Pokemon of the opposite gender have a 50% chance of being unable to attack. Thankfully, our Delibird is female, and since Pokemon is a family-friendly Christian game, Attract has no effect on it and we don't have to worry about any of that. The final kick in the nuts is Rollout, a rock-type move that continuously grows stronger during its 5-turn duration. Early in the game, you find a considerable amount of Pokemon that are weak to rock, which makes it even worse. This all seems like a gargantuan task at first, and I guess that Game Freak thought the same. Those who spend a bit of time exploring Goldenrod will find a girl who is willing to trade you her Machop for an Abra, which can be found just outside Goldenrod. Machop is a solo fighting type, which means it resists rock moves and gets a stab bonus on fighting moves, which are Miltank's weakness. But you can disregard all of that because we're not playing this game normally. And it just so happens that Delibird has a 4 times weakness to rock moves. At this point, 3 returns will take down Miltank, but Delibird can only survive the first hit. We have 3 options. The first and most obvious is to grind some more experience. The second option is to use Mud Slap and pray for the best. The third option is to use Present and trigger a maximum power bomb every time. And frankly, all of these options make me feel dirty. The first one only requires time, while the other 2 simply require luck. I guess this is the limitation of games based around numbers and probabilities, and the other Pokemon games' lack of move variety. Ultimately, I went with the Mud Slap approach, since it would likely require the least amount of time. And with that, we are free to advance and smack a stupid tree. Finally, we reach Ecruteak. We have a bunch of things to do in this city, starting with the theater. Inside are 5 kimono ladies, each sending out a fine XP piñata. Once we've trashed their hopes and dreams, we obtain Surf, an HM that actually isn't completely useless. In fact, it's pretty friggin' awesome, but unfortunately Delibird can't learn it, so we'll have to catch another slave for that. Before we can challenge the gym, we have to go visit the burnt tower. Here we get another battle with Asball, and his hunter made me realize that Santa Balls might be in a bit of a jiffy. See, our mighty penguin is stuck with Mud Slap as its only move, capable of hitting ghost types. Given that Mud Slap is about as effective as a slap against actual mud, this is kind of a problem. We could try Blizzard, but again I don't recommend it. Mud Slap is also going to be useful in another important battle, and since TMs didn't become reusable until Generation 5, I'd rather hold on to it for a bit longer. For now, we're heading to Olivine to farm experience. In here we do 2 things. First we get strength, which will be needed for some obstacles, and second, we climb the lighthouse to get even more experience and trigger the event with Jasmine. After that, we go back to the burnt tower for a rematch with Asball. Things go more smoothly this time. Hunter's Curse can be dangerous, but if you take down the opponent in a single turn, the 25% damage per turn doesn't trigger. Against Magnemite we see Mudslap being super useful. Croconaw and Zubat pose no real threat and go down with a couple of returns. Once mistakes have been made and an Ancient Evil awakens, we turn our sights to east of Ecruteak. Although we can't do any plot events right now, we can certainly suck the trainer's dry for more experience points. Over at the Wake of Rage we can get Hidden Power, a move that varies in type and base power depending on some of the Pokémon's hidden stats. Out of curiosity I tried it and didn't really get any good results. Oh dear. But fate decided to play tricks on me and granted Scendables a bit of luck. Thanks to its massive level advantage, even the diddly squat modicum of power we have with Mudslap is enough to knock out all of Morty's ghosts with 2 hits. The real threat is Gengar and his Hypnosis and Dream Eater combo, and I got lucky. God damn it. After this unfulfilling victory, we head for Olivine once more now that we can use Surf. To start with, we catch a Krabby. Now we can cross the sea. Nothing in particular happens, since Scendables is reaching the point where it can easily tear through most encounters without a problem. In Cianwood we see Suicune doing its thing, I guess? Mystical Man Yusin challenges to a battle, to which we kindly return the favor. After snatching the drugs that Jasmine asked for, we head to the gym, which will be a nice change of pace after 2 complicated ones. The Goldenrod gym was problematic because of Delibird's weakness to rock, while the Ecruteak gym was immune to everything but Mudslap. Cianwood's gym doesn't have any real obstacles, so it's a pretty straightforward section since we can easily take down most Pokémon here through sheer level advantage. With this gym done with, we gain access to Fly. It isn't a particularly good move, but it is the only flying type move that Delibird can learn in Generation 2. And still better than a lot of what Delibird can learn. Back in Olivine, we deliver the drugs to Jasmine, and then she heads back to the gym. And buckle up, because this is going to be the hardest battle for a long while. Jasmine has 3 Pokémon, 2 Magnemites and 1 Steelix. The reason I wanted to keep Mudslap was specifically for these Magnemites, which get obliterated in a single hit. But Steelix? Oh boy, this is going to be a problem. None of Scendables' moves are strong enough to deal any significant damage to Steelix, but Steelix's Iron Tail is strong enough to take down Scendables in 2 hits. Jasmine also uses a Hyper Potion when it's low on health. So what can we do? Well, we can abuse Mudslap and redo the battle over and over until we get lucky enough to never get hit more than once. Which is exactly what I did. Thankfully, it's going to be a smooth ride for a while now. See, in all their golden wisdom, the developers decided to let the player have the freedom to explore various locations once they reach Ecruteak. Even though you can only proceed in the story once you finish Olivine, you can go all the way to the Lake of Rage before then. The problem is that, to accommodate this, every single wild Pokémon and trainer remains at the same low levels. Actually, even the Team Rocket hideout is full of low-level grunts for some reason. As a result, even when playing normally, your party ends up kind of over-leveled. And this isn't even the worst case of an ass-backwards level curve in this game. Oh no, just wait until we get to Kanto. But anyway, since we are playing solo, the level advantage grows even further, which means that the next few hours are spent steamrolling everything. The shiny Gyarados, the Rocket Hideout, the Executives. We find the Thief TM inside the Rocket Hideout, which replaces Mudslap but doesn't get that much use anyway, and it gets replaced almost right away. After this massacre we have another massacre actually. The Mahogany Gym trainers are still too low level to cause Scendables any problems, including the gym leader. The highlight here is that you get the Icy Wind TM. It only has 55 base power and 95 accuracy, which is mediocre but provides some much needed type coverage. It's also Ice type, granting it a power bonus, since Delibird is also part Ice. As we leave the gym, Professor Elm calls us, saying that there's something going on at the radio tower. Now we have the rocket shenanigans in the radio tower, the rocket shenanigans in the underground, the rocket shenanigans in the radio tower again, the executives again. I know I'm rushing through a lot of things, but there really isn't anything much to say here. We have another fight with Assball, but it wasn't anything we couldn't handle. Not having Mudslap causes a bit of trouble with his Magnemite, which takes the opportunity to paralyze Santa Balls. But the rest of his team fails to take advantage and basically just twiddle their thumbs, hoping for Santa Claus to come or something. Next we go to the Tin Tower to lay the smack on an oversized gerbil. Who's the legendary now? Our last Johto gym is in Blackthorn. To get there we have to pass through the ice path. There may be some collateral damage in here. Be strong, Santa Balls. You've been through worse. We pick up Waterfall in here too. Once we've reached Blackthorn, we have a bunch of experience points waiting for us. Claire is actually pretty competent. Her Pokemon are at good levels and Kingdra is a very tough nut to crack. However, her 3 Dragonairs have low defenses and are weak to ice, which happens to be one of Delibird's types. Just unleash a few icy winds and the level advantage will do the rest. Kingdra isn't weak to ice, but goes down to return easily enough. And with that we earn... nothing. What an asshole. Once we are done showing Claire how to clear some kindergarten level philosophy tests, we get a call from Professor Elm, who wants us to go to his lab to get a goddamn Master Ball, which catches anything without fail. Naturally, we use it to catch another slave. We are finally ready to head for the Pokémon League. To get there, we have to crush the hopes and dreams of a whole bunch of trainers. In Victory Road, Assball decides to get in our way once more. Just like last time, our lack of Mudslap hits us in the dick once more, but his Pokémon still fail to take down Santa Balls. We are finally here. The Pokémon League involves 5 battles against the toughest opponents thus far. Prepare to be as disappointed as I was with these battles though. I've come to realize that I underestimated how much of an advantage we have. Will uses an assortment of psychic types, a few of which go down to a single Icy Wind and the others go down to return. His team is mostly focused on offense, so we don't have to worry about status effects or similar. Koga, on the other hand, has a nasty variety of cheap tricks on offer, like moves that increase evasion. Thankfully, none of these proved to be a problem. Bruno could pose a problem if Santa Balls couldn't take down his Pokemon in a single hit, but it can. All of his Pokemon except for Hitmontop go down to 1 Fly or 1 Icy Wind. Hitmontop requires 2 returns simply because it knows Detect, which it uses to nullify Fly's effect during its charge turn. Karen is like Koga in that her strategy isn't just brute force. Umbreon has solid defenses and a bunch of possibly annoying moves, but it just used Feint Attack, so goodbye. Houndoom has powerful fire attacks, but also low defense, so it falls to 1 return. Gengar has Curse and Destiny Bond, but it goes down to Fly. Vileplume shouldn't have been a problem, but Fly missed and it paralyzed Santa Balls with Stun Spore. Thankfully, it wasn't a problem at this point in the battle. Unsurprisingly, Lance posed some trouble. Although Icy Wind is enough for his Dragonites and Aerodactyl, they can paralyze Santa Balls and hit it with various super effective moves if Icy Wind misses. Guess what happens? Second time though, everything goes just fine and Lance is defeated. To be honest, this was kind of underwhelming, but we still have one insurmountable wall left waiting for us at the very end of our journey. However, I'm afraid to say that the disappointment will continue for a bit longer. Kanto is a perfect display of world building getting in the way of the gameplay. See, the wild Pokemon in this region are more or less in the same level ranges as in the Generation 1 games, disregarding the fact that you have already gone through an entire region before. There are several areas where the wild Pokemon have levels in the single digits. I understand why they designed it like this, but I also understand how stupid it is from a gameplay perspective. The trainers don't fare much better. Aside from a couple of exceptions, they are either several levels below the Pokémon League or at approximately the same level, so at this point they don't pose any challenge to your party. With the level advantage of a solo challenge, it's even worse. The first trial is the Vermilion Gym, specialized in electric types. Delibird is weak to electric, but the level gap is so large that it doesn't really matter. Magneton survives one return, but wastes its opportunity with double team, so yeah. Next is the Saffron Gym. All three of Sabrina's Pokémon go down with a single return. Amazing. Next is Celadon City, which is kinda sort of unique in that the highlight of the whole city isn't the huge department store, the game corner or the gym. Instead, the true highlight is this trash can. Inside we find some leftovers, as in the hold item that restores a small amount of HP every turn. Centaballs isn't even getting hit enough for this to matter, but it might still be useful since we can't use regular items in battle. As for Erika, well, all of her Pokémon fall with a single icy wind. Yep. Next up is the Fuchsia Gym, and what an embarrassment. All of Janen's Pokémon are below level 40 and a single icy wind or return puts them out of their misery. Koga, please come back. Cerulean City's gym leader isn't quite as bad, but still doesn't cause any problem for us. Again, just use return a few times and it's done. Pewter's gym leader, Brock, actually has a type disadvantage against ice, with only Omastar and Kabutops not normally falling over in a single hit. I say normally because Omastar got smacked with a critical hit, but it wouldn't have made any difference anyway. We then pay a visit to Cinnabar, or at least what remains of it. Surprisingly, Magcargo manages to vomit a few rocks, but you know, level advantage. The last Kanto gym leader is Blue, and finally we have something vaguely interesting. Blue doesn't even feel like a gym leader since his team is balanced instead of focusing on a single type. In fact, he uses the Pokémon he had as a champion in the Generation 1 games minus the starters, which explains the lack of focus. Either way, his team is also at very respectable levels. There's still a level gap between them and Centaballs, but since they are fully evolved and have good base stats, they are capable of laying down the smack on our poor penguin. Sure would be a shame if Icy Wind missed, wouldn't it? Things go right in the second attempt, but Arcanine still manages to deal a considerable amount of damage. Consider this a sign of things to come. Now that we've conquered every gym in Kanto, we get permission to go to Mount Silver. In here, you find the toughest wild Pokémon and the toughest trainer. Yes, trainer, not trainers. Only one madman would spend his days training in this desolate place. But before we get on with that, you'll have to pardon me for being a moron. I completely forgot that we sort of need Flash to get through Mount Silver, so I had to catch yet another HM slave. With our new ball in tow, we are ready to finish our journey. This place is actually fairly small for a final dungeon, and in fact the last section is just a straight line. At the end, we find Pokémon Trainer Red, the protagonist of Generation 1 and by far the most powerful trainer in the entire game. Our level advantage won't do us much against his Pokémon. Pikachu goes down easily, but after that he sends out Charizard to melt Centaballs with Flamethrower. Centaballs can survive one attack, but can't consistently take down Charizard with two, so the speed advantage doesn't save us. I tried using the Pink Bow to give Return that little extra power, but even if we take down Charizard, one of Red's other Pokémon will chop our balls off. After many attempts, I had no choice but to give up. It tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. The challenge with its original rules is a failure. But what if Centaballs got that little boost from those few remaining levels? After running the Pokémon League a few more times, I got Centaballs up to 100, the maximum level. Would this be enough to beat Red? Centaballs rose up against Red for one more chance, for one last dance. This time, all of the effort we put into this journey would bear fruit. Once again, Pikachu posed no resistance, going down to a single return. But as predicted, next came Charizard. If only Centaballs could take Charizard down, perhaps there would be a chance at— oh, for God's sake! Well, things are certainly looking up now. Espeon resists one return, but doesn't do any significant damage. Snorlax is quite bulky, but this one also seems to be quite stupid, and thankfully Body Slam doesn't cause paralysis. Venusaur doesn't pose a problem thanks to Fly, and in fact actually makes things easier for us by using Sunny Day. This weakens Blastoise's water attacks and forces it to spend a turn using Rain Dance. Centaballs only needs 2 more strikes. Nearly down, Blastoise unleashes a powerful surf attack against the poor, tired penguin. Oh no. Oh no. You son of a— oh, Jesus Christ, thank God. And thus, with a lot of luck and some rule breaking, our adventure reaches the end. Perhaps our victory wasn't completely deserved, but hey, a win is a win, right? So that's that. The conclusion? Delibird can solo Crystal with a bit of luck and maximum level. This dumb challenge is over. And so is this Christmas. The new year will come soon. This last week is time for us to rest and to reflect on everything we've done this year. The things we achieved and the mistakes we've made. The things that we should celebrate and the things that we should strive to improve on. Merry Christmas, everyone. Let's meet again in 2019.